Fear Zone, your channel of horror stories. Good evening everyone, but before I start this report, I will say that this video has two stories, which is about the same werewolf. First I will tell the story of my Indian friend, who fought the werewolf, and in the other story, it was me who had an encounter with the werewolf. And now let's go to today's story, and this happened with the Guarani Indian, from a tribe in the city of Piraquara, which is in Brazil. This happened in the year 2003. And it all starts like this. I am an ordinary Indian, and although I live in a village, I live with people from cities. But what I'm going to tell you today is something that happened in the region where I live, because one day in my tribe at night, I started to hear some cries of despair, of some Indian asking for help, and of course, everyone woke up in the village, and so I went to see what was going on. As soon as I arrived at the house of the Indian who screamed, I saw the warriors of my tribe looking at the woods looking for something. And what I learned is that they saw some kind of huge creature and all hairy, and that walked like a man standing on two legs, and this beast tried to get inside a house in the village, which is like a straw house, and the creature wanted to take a baby boy who had been born a few days ago. Well, the shaman ordered some warrior Indians to go after this creature urgently, because that animal was not a simple animal, and that it was a cursed creature, which came to bring destruction to the region. As soon as the shaman said this, we went after the beast in 8 men, and we entered the bush carrying spears and nets, but in pairs of 2, to be able to find the animal easier. But what happened was that we looked for this beast all night through the woods, and we went near some rural neighborhood, but we found nothing. And with that, we went back to our village, and as soon as the day dawned, we put some traps in the woods, and some rope nets, to capture this creature, and the shaman warned us that this cursed animal would return any night again. Some Indians who knew the ranchers in the region warned them about the creature of the night, and some residents of the nearby villages got to know about this strange animal, and the people of the city said that this creature was a werewolf. Anyway, after the appearance of this animal, some warriors kept watch in the village all night, and these tense days went by, and nothing of this creature appeared. But one day, my brother went to a bar to drink, and there, he learned from a white man that they saw this cursed animal walking inside a ranch, and that they said it was a werewolf, and that this creature was violent, and could even kill a person. With this information, that night, although my tribe was already quiet, and they thought the creature would not come back, I got smart, and with the feeling of distress, and I could not sleep, worried if this animal he was going to come back, and take my tribe by surprise. I ended up then keeping watch, and looking and watching the forest. So the hours went by, and after it got to dawn, suddenly I saw one of my dogs barking at something in the middle of the forest. I went to look to see something, and that's when, out of nowhere, I saw a creature standing about 30 meters away from my village, and it was staring at my village. I hid myself and stayed quiet at that time, and just watching this animal, and that although it looked like a huge and strange dog, it also had a kind of clarity in its eyes, and to me it seemed to be a sign of a curse, and the shaman told us that this animal was cursed. Even though I was a little scared, I woke my brother up quietly, and we took our hunting spears, and a net of ropes, and we left the village slowly and hidden, and we went around without waking anyone from the tribe, and we entered the thicket, and we started walking towards the creature to capture it, and as soon as we got about 15 meters away from the werewolf, this beast began to sniff the air, and became suspicious, and it smelled us, and the werewolf was looking in our direction, and it was at that moment that we saw this animal do something strange, because he was on 4 legs, and out of nowhere, this beast got up, and stood up like people, only on 2 legs, and to our amazement, he began to walk and look in our direction. My brother, seeing danger, he got up from the middle of the bush, and my brother, who was a good hunter, he hurled his spear towards the werewolf, who caught the creature's belly, and with a blow, that monster fell to the ground, and began to make a loud and frightening roar, and so, I already set up the net to capture the werewolf, but the creature managed to get the spear out of his belly quickly, and he stood on 4 legs like an animal, and he began to run away through the thicket, and my brother picked up his spear that was on the ground, and we started chasing this beast through the thicket. But the same injured creature, he was still very fast, and as we ran after the werewolf, we realized that there were many blood marks from that cursed animal on the trail, and after about 5 minutes of hunting, we got close to the beast, and that was already running slower because of the wound. The animal arrived on a dirt road, and he started to drag himself on the ground. So, I managed to throw the hunting net on top of the creature, and we surrounded the captured animal. The werewolf was already very dazed and almost dying. I started to pull the net so that the beast could not escape. But at that time, a car appeared on the road and stopped near us, and soon after, an old man got out of the car, and he came to talk to us, and we saw that inside the car, there was a man and a young man looking scared at the werewolf we captured, but the old countryman started talking for us not to kill that creature. He explained that this animal was a werewolf by its characteristics, because the body of this creature was like that of a man, but all hairy, and the arms of that was very similar to human arms, but the legs were a little crooked back, and his head resembled the skull of a dog with a muzzle, and the ears were big and pointed. The fact is that my brother and I wanted to kill this werewolf, to eliminate this creature once and for all, so that it would no longer haunt our village. But the old man said that this kind of animal, the governments and authorities of the white men will want to investigate this whole story in depth, and may even disappear with our villages, so that this report does not spread, and the old man advised us that it was only to take the creature in a hidden place and away, so that other people would not see this werewolf, and that we were to wait until dawn, because this werewolf in the morning becomes a man again, and that is his true curse. After this conversation with the old man in the car, he started his automobile and drove off down the road, and as we did not know how the law of the town worked, we did as the old bumpkin told us. However, we took the beast trapped in the net to our village, and so we called some warriors of the tribe. I talked to the shaman about what we were going to do to solve this problem, so we decided to wait until dawn and come the day, just like the old man guided us. However, if it did not return in human form, we would kill it. But what happened, when it got close to 4 o'clock in the morning, we started to hear some noises of bones from the werewolf. Then he ran out of his coat, his legs started to shake and his ears started to change shape, and by a magic trick, the werewolf really returned to human form, as the old man in the car told us on the road. And what we did was that the shaman took his healing herbs and bandaged the cursed man, as he was badly wounded with the spear. Anyway, as soon as it was daylight, we took this cursed guy to the road and left him there. He was badly hurt, but he would save himself. But this man who turned into a werewolf was warned by the whole tribe that if he was seen prowling around the area, he would be killed, even in the form of a man. After that, this guy disappeared from our sight, and no one else from my village ever saw this guy around. And of course, I still tried to find out about some other story of this animal cursed by the region, but no one said anything else. And to this day, the Indians of my tribe are still scared with the memory of this werewolf. And the shaman also said that even our indigenous gods are not able to take this curse off a person, because this is part of the supernatural evil, and that no person can dominate. Well guys, before starting the other part of these stories, give a like and subscribe to the channel. Fear Zone, your channel of horror stories. Good evening everyone, and now, let's go to today's story, which is from young Cristiano, and this happened to him in the city of Piraquara, which is in the state of Brazil, and at that time it was in the year 2003, young Cristiano was a teenager. And it all started like this. At that time I lived with my family in the city, and as I was a teenager at that time, so I took my school vacation in January. With that, my father also took a vacation from his job that same month. So, he took the whole family to spend a few days at my grandfather's house, which was on a farm. So, we took the road and traveled to my grandfather's property. When we arrived at the ranch, I saw some cousins and other relatives. But apart from that, the days went by. I liked to take my cousins' bicycles, and we spent the whole afternoon prowling around the neighborhood, which were dirt streets. But one day, my father told me to buy a pack of cigarettes and a quitanda, and that was around 8 o'clock at night, and what I did was that I took my cousin's bike and went alone to that place to buy the pack, and when I arrived at the quitanda, I saw that in this bar, that there were some men drinking in this place, and I saw that one of those men, although he was dressed in pants and shirt, he had some feather ornaments and tribal tattoos, and for me, he was an original Indian by his appearance. But even so, I went to the attendant at the counter to buy the cigarettes. I realized that one man looked at the other with a strange way. I was a little suspicious of what was happening. However, one of the men who was at the bar asked me if I lived nearby. I said yes, that I was spending the vacations at my grandfather's house, which was about 10 minutes away, and right after I got into their conversation, one of the guys who were in this bar told me if I didn't want a ride to go back to my house, and I said no, because I lived near there. I started to find this strange, because they seemed worried about me, and warned me that there was a huge animal with dark hair, and that this beast appeared at night walking around the village, and that it was good I'd take care on the way back to my house not to be attacked by this animal. Anyway, I was a little scared of what these guys told me, but still, I managed to buy the cigarettes and took my way back to my grandfather's ranch. But as I walked back down the dirt road, I looked at the dark undergrowth that was in this area, and I was scared and thinking about that creature that the bar staff told me about, but thankfully, I arrived at my grandfather's ranch. The fact is that when I entered through the gate of the place, I saw that two men who were in that bar where I bought the cigarettes, and they passed walking through the street that was in front of my family's property, but these two guys ended up disappearing down the road. I think they chased me to protect me from that creature they talked about. After that, I went into the ranch and gave the packs of cigarettes to my father. And as it was a weekend, my grandfather told me to change, because we would drive to visit an aunt of mine who lived in another village near our neighborhood. So, I got ready and drove with my grandfather to my aunt's house. We spent a little time at my aunt's house until 1 o'clock in the morning, and then we started the car and took the road to return to our ranch. We passed through several dirt roads, but as soon as we arrived near our neighborhood, we saw a strange thing happening, because there were two men dragging something along the road. My father and I were very scared with what we were seeing, but my grandfather told us not to worry, because it was just two Indians who were on the road, and that this was normal in the village, because there was a village of them nearby. But the biggest surprise was that when we got close to the two Indians, we saw a strange huge creature, which was trapped in a kind of a rope net, but this animal was bleeding and fainted and almost dead, and of course, we were very scared to see the size of this beast. But then, my grandfather stopped the car so we could see this creature more closely, and at that moment, I recognized that one of these two Indians were in the bar together with staff and had warned me about the creature, but they wore normal clothes like pants and shirt, but they still looked like Indians from the village. But other than that, my grandfather got off the car and talked to the two Guarani Indians who captured the beast, and my father told me that that strange animal that the Indians captured was a werewolf. And even then I was afraid, and I looked at that animal that was on the ground, and I saw that the arms of the creature was equal to the arms of a man, because that also had hands with fingers, and his body had a large black coat, but the head of this beast was practically equal to that of a dog. But after a while, my grandfather returned to the car, and he confirmed to us that that animal was a werewolf, and that the Indians had been after this beast for more than a week trying to catch it, because their villages had no protection, and this werewolf was always appearing nearby, and that it could at any time cause a tragedy among the Indians. My grandfather also warned those two Guarani men not to kill the werewolf, because he already knew that when daylight came, that creature would become a man again, and they could cause a murder. And my grandfather continued to explain to them that it was only for them to take this beast somewhere, and wait for him to become a man again, to know who this man is who turns into a beast, and let him be warned not to return to our region. And he continues to say that it was not for anyone else to know about the case of the werewolf, much less the newspapers or radio or any media, because we did not know what the authorities or the government are capable of doing to catch such a creature. And as soon as he warned the Indians, we left that place and arrived at our ranch, and I was also warned not to talk about this case to anyone, and not even to our family, in case something happens and the authorities don't come after us. But what happened was that I spent the whole night scared, and when the day dawned, I was afraid. Just looking at the woods around the property, I thought I had more of these werewolves hidden by those vegetations. Well, passing the days, finished the school vacations, and at my grandfather's residence, I did not see any creature like that, and when I returned to my home in the city, I was still traumatized, and was a little afraid when I was alone somewhere. But what happened was that a few months after the appearance of the werewolf, I was already living my life normally. One day, I ended up taking courage. I went to ask my father what end took that werewolf that we saw on the road with the Indians, and he told me that the Guarani Indians did what my grandfather said, and after the werewolf returned in human form, the Indians freed man to leave, but this guy stayed in the warning that if he was seen next time by the area, it would be the last day of his life. But with all that, I still don't forget that memorable day of my life, and it was only those who saw it can truly believe that these creatures exist. Good night. Well guys, thanks for watching the video, and if you liked the story, give it a like and activate the Tinkerbell to receive new notifications, and subscribe.